Hi, everybody, and welcome to my portion of the Gene Harris Jazz Festival. This is Posture for Musicians. Why is that so important? Why is that important if you're a younger player, if you don't have any problems with posture, or you're not feeling the effects right now, or maybe you've been playing a while like me and experienced some issues? Well, we can prevent some of these issues and we can eliminate or alleviate the pain from years of playing. Why is that important? Why is that important to all musicians? Well, it might come as a surprise, but your body is the instrument. You're like, what? No, my horn, my piano, that is the instrument. Well, did you ever wonder why your sound is particular to you? You can identify your own sound at a recording. Maybe your friends can as well. Or maybe some of the great players like Dizzy Gillespie or J.J. Johnson, Chick Corea, who just left us, God bless his soul. But the way our muscles react with the instrument, the way we breathe, the concept of what we're thinking, the chamber in the mouth and the aperture as we're playing, that all has an effect on our playing. And if our posture is good, that's going to reflect in your playing. If you're bent over, like I call a forward banana, right? You're going to restrict the airflow, much like a hose. You're turning water on and pouring water through a hose. If you bend it, the water slows down quite a bit. It's not as efficient. If you bend it enough, it stops. Maybe you've heard somebody say it feels like the air is backing up in my neck. Well, if you're craning your neck forward like I used to, that could be a problem in the efficiency of your playing and maybe how it projects, getting the horns above the music stand, the efficiency of playing, the ease of playing. And if we don't have to concentrate on our body, then we can spend more time making music, maybe making it easier, preventing injury. So efficiency, maybe alleviating some pain that you already had. I had a 21-year career with the U.S. Army Jazz Ambassadors, where I was hired as the lead trumpet player. I did section work. I did clinics all over the country. Our job was to tour the entire United States every 2.5 years, and even overseas on behalf of the Chief of Public Affairs. And that took a toll. We are active duty soldier musicians. I'm retired now. And as a result of that, I had 2 shoulder surgeries and wrist surgery. And I sought ways to prevent some of those things. And I found out very quickly from most of the research that if your body, let's say posture, let's call it good alignment. And that means the bones in your ankles, way down here, align with your hips in a straight line, align with your shoulders, and then your ears line up with your shoulders. So good alignment, if you put a straight line from those joints, it should be a straight line, but years of sitting down with the computer, looking at phones, one of the things that I used to do was crane my neck. As a high-powered lead trumpet player, I found that I could alleviate some of the forces on the mouthpiece. For trumpets, that could be as much as 100 newtons of energy. What does that translate to? That's like taking a 20-pound dumbbell and setting it on your face. So those forces can have an effect. For me, it started to affect my neck. I know 2 very well-known professional lead trumpet players that had neck surgery after playing for 30 or 40 years. And I saw myself headed that way and others. And I said, let's do something about it. Your body is the instrument. And you may say, well, wait a minute, that's a strange concept, right? My instrument, what do I play? That's the thing, right? Well, no. Did you ever wonder why, when you play, The instrument has your sound. It's an identifiable sound. You can hear yourself on a recording in a number of other instruments and identify yourself, or maybe a famous player you're listening to, like Doc Severinsen, Dizzy Gillespie, John Coltrane, Bud Powell. That's because everything starts here. And if your body is in alignment, let's call it good posture alignment, then everything works to your advantage. Now you could play really good with bad posture. You can play really bad with good posture. So this isn't a technique. These are things that I discovered on the way as I had had some injuries during my 21-year career with the U.S. Army Jazz Ambassadors, that I had to correct some issues. I had 2 shoulder surgeries, a wrist surgery. I had discovered that by rounding the shoulders, it decreased the spaces in the joints. And that's detailed in my paper. There's a lot of pressures that go on as an instrumentalist. If in the strings, our bodies tend to conform to the instrument that we play. So string players, after a while, you get in an automatic position. And so we need something to get us out of some of those positions. As a trumpet player, I can't avoid my right arm being over my left. So, what can I do? I can make things more efficient, and I can return the body to a good posture. So, that's what I'm talking about here. I think I mentioned it a lot to my students, but there's a lot of forward banana, people looking at their phones rolled over. Think about if you stretched a muscle in your arm, let's say like a forearm stretch. Really good for repetitive use injuries, right? But let's say we held this stretch for hours a day. Eventually, that might cause pain, but what if you're stretching, rounding your back and rounding your neck? Have you ever seen they call it a widow's hump in the back there? The body will start to adjust to your position. If you keep stretching the muscles, it'll lengthen the muscle. In the back, they call that hypermobility. It becomes unstable and a little more weak. Shoulders that permanently round, decreasing the spaces. So these things are very important, not only to your health, but the efficiency of your playing. So if you're a younger player, maybe you just want to play easier, be able to focus more on the music. If you've been playing a while, maybe you've started to feel some of these difficulties, and we can do something about it. So brass players, when I was playing in the high range, I started to crane my neck using the bones to mitigate the force into my face. That's, like I said, up to 100 newtons of force into my face that, any lead trumpet will experience those higher pressures. That's like having a 20-pound dumbbell sitting on your face. So we need to mitigate these things to avoid injury, but play better. Saxophone players, you have a neck strap that's pulling weight down here on the neck and shoulders. String players have a lot of extremity injuries from repetitive use. They're flexing the wrists and the elbows up to 600 times during a performance. Trombone players at the elbow many times during a practice or performance period. So we want to spend time returning our body to good posture. So in my paper, I developed a set of exercises from head to toe. And I'm going to explain a few of these and, show you, how I do them, why I do them, what they're going to do for you. And there'll be a link to that on, under this video, or maybe to the right on top. I'm not quite sure, but it'll be there so you can download those. But let's talk about those now. These are some of the selected exercises that I chose from Posture Professionals, the Egoscue Method, yoga, physical therapy, a concept called eccentrics. And let me explain eccentrics because that's going to be an important part of some of these posture positions or exercises that we can call them. The in a book called Forever Painless, Miranda White talks about this concept of moving up to any pain. So what we're doing here, if you feel pain, first stop. Consult a medical professional. These exercises aren't meant to replace medical knowledge or professional therapy. However, these are published methods that you can do easily and do at home. Now, back to eccentrics. Eccentrics is a concept that maybe an injury that you had 10 years ago, or maybe 5 years ago, that's most likely since healed. Now, in that case, there's a memory of that pain, okay? And so, maybe you hurt your back. Your back in 5 years, that probably should have healed by now unless there's a tear. But like I say, get it checked out. Now, after that time, you started protecting that back and maybe started restricting the motion. Well, there's a somatic memory in your body, soma being the body. So there's a somatic memory of that pain. So as you're doing these, maybe you feel that knot or something, that pain in your back. And if we ask you to do something and you feel up to that, go up to the pain, not into the pain. So what I mean by that is if you were turning your head and you turn to here and you feel pain. All right, well, we're going to stop there. We're going to turn and stop before we feel the pain. If you're doing arm rolls and you're lifting your shoulder, you feel pain, stop and maybe go right before that point. So that's an important part of that, because we don't want you to, number one, be in pain. This isn't a no pain, no gain kind of scenario like bodybuilding. And I think as we've gotten along, we've kind of figured that that's probably not a good a mindset anyway. So we're trying to alleviate or maybe even avoid pain. This is a list of the selected exercises that I included, things that help from head to toe. And we're going to show you how to do them, why I included these specifically in a quick routine, and maybe how to do them. So the first one I want to do is something we can do together right now, and to see what these immediate effect that you might be able to see how this can affect your body in a positive way. At least you can feel the change. So these are forward and backward arm rolls. But first, here's what I want you to do. So I'm going to move back so you can see my feet. I want you to put your feet shoulder width apart. Now, take a look down. If your feet are splayed out, let's get them straight back and forth. Take a look down. There we go. Now, I want you to close your eyes, and we're going to close our eyes and feel. Do you feel maybe more weight on your heel of your foot? Maybe you feel more weight on the balls of your feet. Maybe you're doing all right and you feel pretty even from back and forth. But after we do this, remember that, and we're going to see how this affected us. Now, put your arms out. You're going to curl those knuckles, just the knuckles. Now, you're going to point your thumbs towards that front of you, and we're going to do medium arm circles. Do 10 of these, but it's a 2 count, so 20 in total. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, now we're going to rotate those thumbs back. Keep those first couple knuckles curled there. There you go. Now we're going to do some backward circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great. Now just relax. Put your arms down. Now let's stay in place there and close your eyes again. Now, did you feel a shift? Maybe is there more weight on the ball of your feet or the heel? Or is it a little more even? Either way, you should probably be able to feel a shift. After doing that, I feel a little more that my center of gravity feels like more in the center of my feet. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is breathing. Now there's a ton of methods. This is something I learned from Don Jacoby near University of North Texas. He taught outside the school in Denton. And this is one of the things he talked about was the natural breath. Now he wasn't the first source and definitely not the last source for this sort of breathing, but he would say if you ever saw a dog laying on its side, it doesn't know how to breathe incorrectly. You know, all the bad habits that, as we grow up from kids, we breathe, our diaphragm sits like an upside down salad bowl. So if you just take a nice easy breath, put your hands down here. Now take an easy breath and feel that. It should push out your stomach. Now, as Jake said, just because you're pushing your stomach out doesn't mean that's getting air. Just let the air push your hands out gently. Now, when a lot of his students, including me, first started doing this, it felt like we couldn't get a breath fast enough. But you can practice that to where in a fraction of a second, you can fill that belly up without straining any muscles, and you don't need more air than what you need to expel. So if it's a 4-bar phrase, just get in enough to support your instrument for 4 bars. Maybe you're a rhythm section player, you just need a natural breath to keep the energy going, help keep the focus. That's great too. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the yoga breath. It's been around for a couple thousand years. However, a very famous lead trumpet player, soloist, trumpet player, clinician, one of my heroes, Bobby Shew, made this very popular. He's been teaching it to schools around the United States and all over the world. So what is it and what does it do? Well, as I start getting into the higher range, I don't want to use force. I want to use compression, but in the right places. If I use compression in my neck, let's say I breathe in the chest, well, all those ribs are attached. So all I can do is expand to a point. I raise my shoulders. I can't even talk normally like that. Now that's going to be a problem, especially if you're playing. Now you might feel problems in your neck. You might even damage the mucoceles in here or maybe pull a muscle. We want to avoid that. So compression in the right places for breathing is going to be down here in the belly. What Bobby calls it is the wedge. Is because somewhere here around your belly button, it's going to come up and in and provide stability. And also for playing in the upper register is going to prevent hernias. Now that's a whole other subject there. You can find many things on that, but we're not going to go into that. Let's just try to prevent something like that from happening. So Bobby, on the wedge, you could break it down into 6 mini steps. But much like a martial arts routine, you do step 1, step 2, step 3. Eventually, each step becomes one movement. So keep that in mind. These are 6 elements really of what should eventually be 1 breath. All right, so the first part of the wedge is your step 1. You're going to get just a little breath of air, maybe let's call it 5%. It comes out. Now, you're going to get that, once you've got that, you're going to get that air in, and it moves from low up to high. So now we're not only filling the lower cavity, the diaphragm, which pulls those lungs out, but we want to get that air in the upper chest. Now step 3, step 1, step 2. Now this is the only time where you should engage shoulders when you're breathing. This is for generating the higher compression, is we can get a little bit of space by raising those shoulders. Now, step 4, we want to grip that wedge. So put your finger in your belly button and see if you can compress those muscles a little bit and create, it's like a little shelf that goes in there. Now, when we're ready to expel, we lower those shoulders and blow. That would be step 6. So let me demonstrate that on my horn. And keep in mind, this isn't like a super, remember, this technique is for creating tension in the right places, creating faster air, and creating a bass. Now, the faster you blow, we don't want to overdo it, for lack of a better word. The more that you do it, or you feel like this more force is not the object of this, it's just to create a bass as we ascend. Hello everybody, welcome to the Gene Harris Jazz Festival. This portion is Posture for Musicians. It was the result of my research in body alignment for my research paper at the University of Miami, where I received my Doctor of Musical Arts. But it was really the result of a personal journey of 21 years of playing with the U.S. Army Jazz Ambassadors. We were the U.S. Army's touring jazz band, and we toured the United States doing over 120 concerts a year, plus local concerts in the area. And if we weren't doing that, we were rehearsing. Our job included moving heavy equipment, and the physical requirements of being an active duty soldier musician. All those took a toll after a while, and I had 2 shoulder surgeries to repair a torn rotator cuff, and wrist surgery to repair one of the bones, possibly from lots of push-ups and lifting the equipment. But I also experienced some neck and upper back issues from craning forward as I played, and rolling the shoulders forward as part of playing my trumpet. And here's the thing. Each class of instruments, woodwinds, brass, strings, after many years of playing, the body starts to conform most efficiently to the instrument that you play. So that's great. However, if you're trying to move like that, maybe you're trying to lift something, do some exercise, or moving around in general. Now, if you're starting to roll those shoulders in a trumpet, where one shoulder has to be higher than the other, a saxophone player who's supporting all that weight on the neck strap, if we don't return our body to a normal position, we start to stay in that position. Now, if I roll the shoulders, that's going to reduce the space that's between the arm and the socket. So after a while, in my case, as I reduce the space, the bones start to rub those soft tissues, and eventually it tears. Now, at first, you might feel discomfort, After that, you might feel pain, and after that, there's an injury. So we want to avoid that. But not only that, if your body is in a straight position, aren't you going to play more efficiently? Look at a water hose. If you turn on the water water comes out great. But if you start to bend it, you bend it enough that water slows down completely, or enough that water stops. Well, that's going to be the efficiency of your air and therefore your sound. Or even if you're a rhythm section player, if you're bent over all the time, maybe you're not going to get enough oxygen, won't maintain focus, or just experience some fatigue. So if we are in a good alignment, we'll call it posture. We'll interchange those here as we talk about this. You're going to play more efficient. Now, as a younger player, you might not see what's going on 20 or 30 years down the line, but I have seen many professional players have neck injuries. I've had shoulder, wrist injury, upper back. String players have a lot more pain and injuries in the shoulders, elbows, wrists, the extremities. So, you know, what is this going to do? Like I say, keep in mind that your body is the instrument. And you might say, no, my horn, my whatever I play, that's the instrument. Well, did you ever wonder why you sound like you on whatever you play? Now, maybe you can, out of a recording of 20 or more musicians, you can actually hear your sound. Or maybe somebody like John Coltrane or Dizzy Gillespie, Bud Powell, Thad Jones, all of a sudden, that's a very particular sound and easily identifiable. Well, was it the horn that they play or their particular brand of piano? I don't think so. It all starts here in the air that we produce, or the touch from the alignment, the use of our individual muscles, the alignment of our skeleton. Now, the skeleton itself doesn't do anything. It's a set of bones and connective tissue. However, the muscles drive the alignment of the skeleton. Now, I do see a chiropractor on a regular basis, and I encourage people to seek medical help for these things. This is not a medical replacement for any sort of medical intervention. If you're experiencing pain or an injury, please consult your medical professional. All right. However, these are all I found from published methods called the Egoscue method. Pete Egoscue was a Marine officer in Vietnam that got injured in an explosion, was told he'd never walk again, became a well-known physical therapist in his own methods. He's done high-profile athletes, Olympians, you name it. Has centers all over the country that help people. Yoga, you could do a yoga class. There's a couple elements here from that. I've referenced Dr. Kelly Starrett is a physical therapist that's sought out all across the country, has a couple different books I've referenced. And then the last one is a book by Miranda White called Forever Painless. Okay, and she talks about this concept called eccentrics. And the main point that I talk about in my paper, and what we're going to talk about here, is not moving into pain, but moving up to the point of pain. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's say you injured something maybe 10 years ago. Well, there's a high likelihood that that injury has already healed a long time ago. All right, all the cells in your body replace themselves in just a few years. So what happened is we started protecting that motion. So it's a somatic memory, which the soma is your body, and you have a memory of that pain. So you remember this pain and you protect it. So you move to that point of that injury that happened 10 years ago. You might still feel the pain. Well, you can unlearn that according to her and her research. So when you're doing any movement, you can move up just before the point of where you may feel any pain, like in your neck. If you feel the pain here, stop. Move up to the point before. Now, after you do that a few times, you should find, unless there's still unrepaired damage, find a doctor. But if it has healed itself and you move up to the pain, you might find that your range of motion starts to increase because you can train the body out of that somatic memory. So keep that in mind. Now, there's two main kinds of posture I want to talk about here, and it works for my younger students, and it's even for the older ones. It's just a good analogy, but let's call it forward banana, where you see people slumping over their chairs. What we're actually doing when we do that is supporting our weight by compressing the bones in the spine. And as we talked about what happened in my shoulder, eventually you're putting bone against bone. There will be degeneration, most likely, and also you're restricting that air. So people say, okay, well, I understand. So what do? They go backwards banana. The old military shoulders back and chest out. Well, if you tried to maintain that posture for a while, that's very uncomfortable as well. So we want not forward and not back, but to align the joints from the ankle. See if we can find it, but the ankle point should line up to the hips, straight up to the shoulders, and to that AO joint we talked about. In fact, what you could do is set up a timer on your cell phone camera and take a full side shot and draw little dots. And in many of the people that myself and others that I worked with, that line becomes very jagged. Hips forward, hips back, shoulders forward, maybe the head is forward of the shoulders. And what you're going to notice as you do some of these things, take a picture after, you might see those dots align as you're as a straight line up and down. As a player, that's going to make it easier, more efficient, allow us to concentrate on the music. So what are some of the stressors that we experience as musicians? Well, as a lead trumpet player, I experience up to 100 newtons of force from the mouthpiece to into the jaw. That translates to a 20-pound dumbbell and sitting it on your chops and how that would feel. So you can see it's very important to minimize any misalignment that could cause any pain or damage. Now I do that, I've been doing that for a long time, and I do it as efficiently as possible. Rhythm section players can have forward posture, restricting the air, a lot of wrist and extremity motion. So rhythm section players might have back problems from slumping, drummers and string players, more problems with the extremities. But here's the great thing. The alignment in the torso from your hips to your shoulders up to the neck, that's going to drive good alignment in the legs and the arms. So the torso drives the alignment of the extremities, not the other way around, all right? The selected exercises. The very first two things I talk about in there as it relates to breathing, and I'm going to talk about the natural breath here. In my lead trumpet video, in one of the other sections, I'm going to talk about a higher compression breathing that protects things like from players getting hernia or hiatal hernia in the neck or expanding the mucoceles. But let's just talk about the natural breath. What is a natural breath? Well, if you've ever seen a baby breathe or a dog lying on his side that's been running around for a while, they haven't got any bad habits and they don't know any other way than to breathe from the diaphragm. How many of your band directors have said, breathe from the diaphragm? Do you know what that really means? So that diaphragm can be an involuntary muscle. We breathe while we sleep, right? We can breathe without thinking about it. Or, so like play an instrument, we can breathe on command. So it's a dual function muscle. Now, think of it as an upside down salad bowl. And when we breathe, that compresses all, like if we stepped on that salad bowl, it's going to move out around all sides. So, if you take a good breath, in fact, let's put your hand on your belly. Let's take just a gentle breath. Now you should feel that breath. If you're doing from down here, move those hands out. Now, if we take that, the breath just releases, it comes back. Now, just because you're pushing your belly out, as Don Jacoby used to tell us, doesn't mean you're getting air. Let the air push those hands. Now, that's a natural breath. Now, if you're playing a 4-bar phrase, get 4 bars worth of breath. Get support, but don't get 16 bars worth of breath and overdo it. If you're doing a longer phrase, get more breath. If you're doing a 2-bar phrase, you don't need all that extra air. So when we're done, the air that we take, we expel any out. So that's what we talk about a natural breath. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the yoga breath. It's been around for a couple thousand years. However, a very famous lead trumpet player, soloist, trumpet player, clinician, one of my heroes, Bobby Shew, made this very popular. He's been teaching it to schools around the United States and all over the world. So what is it and what does it do? Well, as I start getting into the higher range, I don't want to use force. I want to use compression, but in the right places. If I use compression in my neck, let's say I breathe in the chest, well, all those ribs are attached. So all I can do is expand to a point. I raise my shoulders. I can't even talk normally like that. Now that's going to be a problem, especially if you're playing. Now you might feel problems in your neck. You might even damage the mucoceles in here or maybe pull a muscle. We want to avoid that. So compression in the right places for breathing is going to be down here in the belly. What Bobby calls it is the wedge, is because somewhere here around your belly button, it's going to come up and in and provide stability. It also, for playing in the upper register, is going to prevent hernias. Now that's a whole other subject there. You can find many things on that, but we're not going to go into that. Let's just try to prevent something like that from happening. So, Bobby, on the wedge, you could break it down into 6 mini steps. But much like a martial arts routine, you do step 1, step 2, step 3. Eventually, each step becomes one movement. So keep that in mind. These are 6 elements, really, of what should eventually be one breath. All right, so the first part of the wedge is your step 1. You're going to get just a little breath of air, maybe let's call it 5%. It comes out. Now, you're going to get that, once you've got that, you're going to get that air in, and it moves from low, up to high. So now we're not only filling the lower cavity, the diaphragm, which pulls those lungs out, but we want to get that air in the upper chest. Now step 3, step 1, step 2. Now this is the only time where you should engage shoulders when you're breathing. This is for generating the higher compression, is we can get a little bit of space by raising those shoulders. Now, step 4, we want to grip that wedge. So put your finger in your belly button and see if you can compress those muscles a little bit and create, it's like a little shelf that goes in there. Now, when we're ready to expel, we lower those shoulders and blow. That would be step 6. So let me demonstrate that on my horn. And keep in mind, this isn't like a super, remember, this technique is for creating tension in the right places, creating faster air, and creating a bass. Now, the faster you blow, we don't want to overdo it, for lack of a better word. The more that you do it, or you feel like this more force is not the object of this, it's just to create a bass as we ascend. Let me. Next thing I'd like to share with all of us is the semi-supine position. Now, there's many forms of this. Yoga and Egoscue utilize very similar things. But why did I choose the Alexander method for this particular one? Well, this is for that forward head posture. Now, the general PT exercise for forward head posture is to do chin tucks. We put a finger or two on your chin, jut your head out, kind of push it back into position. All right? Now, the reason that did not work for me is because of the amount of time I was spending playing trumpet, sitting down, looking at the computer, those sort of things. What I found more helpful was the Alexander technique of the semi-supine position. We're going to lay down and we're going to use a couple books to bridge that gap. Now, the first thing we can do is do a little test. Find a door, find a piece of wall, and let's go check that out. Now, when I first did this test, I couldn't get my head all the way back to the door because I had been like this for so long. That's where the musculature that had supported the bones kind of had taken me. So put your heels and your glutes and your shoulders up against the door and see how far you can get. Now, I can get up to the door now fairly comfortably. Now, when I first started doing it, I was maybe like about like this, 3 fingers away. Now, I could get it to the door, but not without arching my back and doing that backward banana. That's really not going to help. What we need to do is find how far you're from that wall. 4 fingers, 3 fingers, 2 fingers. If you can get all the way up there without arching your back, you're doing all right. But still, this is helpful. We'll see why this is helpful. We're going to use gravity and to relax the muscles and get everything in alignment. It's also very relaxing and doesn't take a lot of effort, and that's one of my favorite parts. So now we're going to do the semi-supine position. Remember how many fingers you were away from the door? Well, let's get a couple of small books, and we're going to put that on the back of our head, and we're going to. So now let's demonstrate the semi-supine position. Remember how many fingers you were away from the door? We're going to get a little stack of books about to that distance. Now we're going to lay down. You tuck your chin in a little bit. So I've got my trusty Arbon's book and a couple books on top of that. Now I'm going to have my shoulder blades flat on the floor, arms at a 45-degree angle. Now my feet are going to be tucked in under my knees. Now you just do this for 5 minutes, maybe 10 if you're actually feeling some pain and discomfort. Now after a few days, this is where the magic starts to happen. You take out one of these books, now you're getting closer. And now gravity is relaxing the muscles because you don't have to flex anything. And now the muscles that have been shortened up in front are going to start to lengthen. And then the hyperextended muscles in the back, now that they're in a shorter position, the body will start reclaiming some of that for you. Now maybe after a few more days of that, you can do that comfortably. You go down to the last book until you can do one thin book or just on the floor. Keep that chin tucked in. And that's the semi-supine position. All right, so the next one here is the towel position. We're going to do similar to the semi-supine, but we're going to take a couple towels here. Now take a bath towel, you're going to fold it in half. We're going to let it go lengthwise. Now we're going to make it a tight roll. Now you're going to want to get 2 of these. And once we make those rolls, we're going to put one behind our head and then one in the small of our back as we move down to the ground and get into position. Get your semi-supine position. Put the first towel here in the curve that should be in the back of your neck. Now, for some at first, I've been doing a forward head posture, just like me, and I completely lost the curve in my neck. You may want to, at first, unroll that pillow and make that roll a little smaller. All right, now you're going to take your second pillow. You find the little curvature, the lordotic curve in your lower back, and you're going to set the second pillow down there. Again, if that's uncomfortable, we don't want you in pain, we want you up to pain. So you might want to reduce the size of that roll as we progress. You can get that thick. You can use the whole towel. So this is what it looks like with both towels in place. Just relax, let gravity do the work. Have those arms at a 45-degree angle. Those shoulder blades on the floor, and the glutes should be touching the floor. And like I say, let gravity do the work. Now the reason we're doing this particular, the towel roll posture exercise is your spine, it maintains an S curve. Now that is shock absorption. Now the other thing is when we breathe, it needs that part of the S curve back here for us to expand as we breathe. It actually moves the spine out of the way when we exhale. Now that spine is going to come back in place. That's the flexibility. That's the power of the musculature and the skeletal system, right? Now, if you're forward, you're not going to have that flexibility to get a full breath. And if you're backwards, that part of the S curve is going to be too stiff to flex. This is why these things are very important. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is, I believe it's step 5. It's called the bracing sequence. Now, these are books by Dr. Kelly Starrett, a bestseller, New York Times, Wall Street bestseller, Becoming a Supple Leopard, and Desk Bound. Uh, you know, the ill effects of more and more sitting as we do in a society and what to do about it. And the bracing sequence was the most complete and quickest way to experience that full body alignment. So let's check that out now. Now, just a quick reminder, don't lock those knees, okay, as we're doing this. Reminder, we've locked, screwing those feet in, squeeze the glutes, those legs come together and up, almost like you're trying to pull them together, but the feet stay where they are. Take that deep breath in. Now, as we breathe out, and that upper back has to push out, maintaining that S-curve. So that is already, you can see a difference. Now, balance your rib cage over the pelvis. Get your belly tight as you exhale. Now that just really moved the hips into alignment there. Now, set your head and shoulders into a neutral position. Now, as you can tell, everything is in alignment now, even though you can't see my ankles, but the ankles are under the hips. The shoulders are right above the hips. Everything's in a straight line. Head's in a neutral posture, so that means the ears are directly over the shoulders. Now, step 6 is the neck extension exercise. And this was one of the first exercises I did to combat the effects of that forward neck posture. I'm going to roll up a towel, put that back in the bend of your neck. Now, you're going to pivot at the ears. That's your AO joint, right? It's hard to say. Now, we're going to raise those arms, move that head up. A pivot is one unit. And keep a bit of pressure. It doesn't need to be excessive. And you'll notice that that movement is not only natural, but it's going to strengthen those muscles there. Now, here's a little bonus that is not in the paper. It's a yoga video that I really liked. Now, there's just a couple elements of this. Without the towel, you're going to stand, you do the bracing sequence, get there, inhale, exhale. Now, we're going to do each of, I'm going to show you once, but we're going to do each of these movements 3 times when we're doing this, nice and slow. This isn't in a hurry. And we're going to go forward, chin to chest. Now, that same thing we did with the towel, we're going to pivot at the ears and go as far back as you can or before you feel any pain. So we're going to do that 3 times on our own. Now, the next part of this sequence is we're going to do turns. You want to turn, look to the right as far as you can before any pain. And you should feel a stretch in the side of the neck where the muscle is called the levator muscles. And then you're going to do that to the left. Now, I saw myself really starting to increase the range of motion as I did these. Now, the next step is we're going to go ears to shoulder. Now, make sure that your chin is tucked in. You're still in good alignment here. Ear to shoulder. Now, we're going to do left ear to left shoulder. Now, we're going to do some forward shoulder rolls. Engage those rhomboids that have gotten tight, and do some reverse ones. And that's the yoga neck sequence. The levator scapulary stretch is step 7 in this routine. Now we want to use gravity, not force, to stretch the neck. Those levators are attached here from the base of the skull down to the collarbone. Grab the left side of the chair. Why are we doing that? Is to keep the shoulders down as we do this. Now we're going to look to the right pocket. Right hand, left pocket. Step 8 in the paper was actually included in that yoga neck sequence I showed you. That's the lateral neck stretch. We did 3 of those. Or you could do this and just keep straight, head above the shoulders. Don't arch your back in reverse. Keep it in a neutral position. Ear to shoulder. And just hold for 30 seconds. Whatever you do to one side, make sure you do to the other. So have you guys heard about trigger points? This is one of the things I talk about. Dr. Kelly Starrett in his books talks about them. There are whole manuals on just trigger points, trigger point method. What is a trigger point? Well, if you pull a muscle, it's actually a micro tear. Just like we're building muscle, if you do a bicep, you're doing micro tears in the muscle starts to build. Well, if you injure a muscle, that tear becomes a little more intense. The body is going to want to protect that particular spot. And what you might feel is a knot. And so you say, man, I need to, got in the floor, there's a knot here in my forearm, so I want to stretch it. Well, that protection, that knot isn't going to stretch out because all it's going to do is stay there while you stretch the muscles around it. When you release the stretch, now there's going to be a rebound effect, so that knot may actually get worse. So what do you do about that? You get something like a lacrosse ball, which has a little bit of give. This particular one I got on Amazon, it was 2 together. And why is that? So I could use points between my shoulder blades and spine, but we don't want to put pressure on the spine when working with a lacrosse ball or even a tennis ball. Tennis ball has a little more give, but I find that it's not intense enough to get the spot, but it's your choice. So let's say we have a knot right here, that trigger point. You're going to hold it on you'll feel the point where it feels most uncomfortable. I don't mean out and out pain, but it'll feel pretty uncomfortable. And you just let it put some pressure, moderate amount of pressure, and just let it sit there for about 30 seconds. Now, step 9, talk about wind players. You may find that you may have jaw issues. TMJ is a condition where there's trigger points in the muscles around the jaw. Then it can affect your jaw alignment. It can pain, headaches. This is a great mobilization thing.
Condition where there's trigger points in the muscles around the Jarfax. Check it out.
I had Siri responded to with an article on trigger points. So let's go back to step 9, that jaw mobilization. We're going to palpate the jaw area, mobilize it for where the soreness is. Now you're going to find that tension, just twist, just gently. And whatever you do to one side, let's do it to the other. Find the Find the stress point, just a little bit of pressure, and twist. Now, step 10, anterior and posterior neck mobilization. The same thing. Those Step 10, anterior and posterior neck mobilization. Now, this is one of the issues that I have as a trumpet player, is a tightening in these muscles. Now, this isn't into the throat. This is into that rhomboid. You should be able to feel that. Now, get it tucked in there. Now what you're going to do is put a little pressure and now stretch the neck. If you have it into the soft part of your neck, you may pass out, so don't do that. Find that muscle here. Let's do the other side. Now we're going to tuck into it, a little pressure. Now we're going to stretch that neck. Great for releasing tension in the shoulders, may even headaches. Same thing in the back here. We could get a lot of tension, bend, a little bit of pressure. And then lean away from it. Same in the other side. Find that. Now we're going to lean into it. So as we stretch, that will feel like it's increasing the pressure. Step 11 was those arm rolls. Remember, tuck the fingers, keep the feet forward and back. 10 to 20 this way, or 10, 2 counts. We're going to reverse that. That is going to not only help with your alignment, but it's going to mobilize those shoulder blades. Sometimes we forget that these are movable joints, and even the clavicle bone here. There's actually a movable junction, not only here, but here. The clavicle actually moves. And the whole concept throughout this is if you don't move it, you lose it. You can restrict the range of motion of any of these pivot points, and you're going to have problems. Now, this is step number 12 in the appendix. This is the pectoralis stretch. And why do we want to do that? Because as players, as brass, or slumping over, walking with poor posture, we compress these muscles here. Eventually, the body reclaims that energy. These muscles will shorten. So we want to do something that's going to gently lengthen the muscle. The pectoralis stretch is going to do that, and it doesn't need to be extreme. You're just going to make a right angle with your arm, find a doorway or a piece of wall that you can stand parallel to, all right, or perpendicular to. And now I'm going to look the opposite direction and maybe bring my right shoulder back a little bit, keep my feet planted, don't twist your hips, and you should feel a gentle stretch right through here. All right, that's going to eventually lengthen those muscles. Whatever you do to that side, the left side, do to the right side. Plant your feet, look to the left, rotate your left shoulder just a little bit until you feel that gentle stretch here. Now, I find that strengthening the trapezius muscle was also important after a matter of time after I did this appendix. So a little bonus here, find a row machine at the gym, all right, and you want to bring those shoulder blades together and slowly release. You can also do it with a stretch band. There's also a program of yoga for regular guys. yoga, they give fancy man names for it. But the DR row is what this is called. You can do it without being at a gym. Plant your feet hip width apart. Uh, you're going to like grab on the virtual handles, and now you're going to squeeze, pull back like you're pulling through cement, wet cement or heavy mud. Bring those shoulder blades together and then slowly release like you're pushing through thick mud. Release. Now, this is an isometric exercise that's also going to strengthen those trapezius muscles. So the muscles in the back are going to pull together, you're going to lengthen these, and you're going to open up those joints in your shoulders. Also, it's going to open up your airway. If this is free, you're going to be compressed. If this is compressed, your air is going to be limited. If you are in a good posture, it's going to make playing a lot easier. All right, this next one, step number 13. This is the T-spine smash, fancy name by Dr. Kelly Starrett. From hunching over, wind up getting a lot of tension in that upper back. We've stretched out that those muscles in the back. And a good way to relieve that tension is get a foam roller, or I got the fancy Chirp online. This is the medium ring. They come in small and large. But like we did with the trigger points, we're not rolling. We're going to place the foam roller at place in our upper back. Support your head. Now find that place where you feel the most tension, and you're going to stretch back. Now the next one is step number 14, the upper trunk spine twist. Now the reason I selected these is in playing and all sorts of activities, you want to stretch those intercostal muscles. It's very great for the exhalation of breath and supporting the torso. So we're going to lay flat, bring the knees up. Now we're going to lift up your feet, and you're going to move your legs to the left. You can use your arm to bring these down a little bit. Your right arm, we're going to look at that straight out on a T. Hold that for about 20 seconds. Come back, lift up those feet, and we're going to go to the other side. Now step number 15 is the static back posture exercise. This is going to align the hips, and it's a static posture, so what it means is we're just going to lie there until gravity kind of does its work. It's going to align the hips eventually after 5 or 10 minutes, maybe more if you've got a lot of lower back pain. It doesn't take much energy. It doesn't take much twisting, especially if you're already feeling pain. But this is a great way to align the hips. The shoulders are going to be flat. The head's going to be flat. It's full alignment. So now we're going to get a chair. You can do this on the edge of the couch. But we're going to get those legs up to where they make an L position here. Your hips are under your knees. Arms flat, palms up at a 45-degree angle. Now that's going to align those hips. And you just 5-10 minutes, eventually gravity will do all the work for you. Especially if you're having lower back pain. This is very good. Takes very little energy to do, especially if you're already feeling pain. But if you're not feeling pain, it's still a great way to get those hips. People seem to be in two categories, hips forward or hips too far back. This solves both those problems at once. Now, we're going to do step 16 and 17 together because you can see how we can transition from 16 to 17 here in a moment. These are two yoga poses that I also saw included in many of the other books. Of course, the yoga books, the Egoscue, the physical therapy. This is a great way to mobilize a tight spine. The spine has an S-curve, and that is for shock absorption. It also allows for the expansion when we breathe. It's going to push out that those thoracic part of the spine, and as we release, the spine comes back. So a mobilized spine is very important. And so let's go to that. Get your knees under your hips, your hands under your shoulders. Now, this is the cat lift. Get those shoulders down. Make sure they're not arched. Get those shoulders down parallel. Now you're going to gently raise the head and look up. Now you should feel a good stretch in the neck and that upper back. Now you're going to tuck your tailbone, the cat arch, and push that spine into an arch. Hold that. And then we're going to come back down into the cat arch. Again, you're gaining mobility and moving that spinal fluid in the back. Now from here, you can go into downward dog. Now this is scientifically proven to strengthen the shoulders. Egoscue talks about this improves the nerve connections from the ankles all the way to the wrists in this one move. So from the cat lift, I'm going to roll my toes in. I'm going to push my legs out. Try to get your knees straight and those heels towards the floor. You might not be able to at first. And get your shoulders and your head tucked in there. Now you can hold that. Work your way up to about 60 seconds. The next step number 18, is the quad stretch. Now, why don't I include this? It's because of the amount of sitting we do in modern times. The body was not designed to sit in chairs for hours and hours a day, but that's just what's required. Hours of rehearsal, a desk chair. It's just unavoidable that we're in a sitting position. The more we sit, the more we're going to shorten those quad muscles. So you can use a chair. You're going to take your left hand, grab your left ankle. Now, not get it behind you, but stay straight and just get a gentle stretch on those quad muscles. You can have a chair, or if you don't need a chair, you can do it just standing with balance. Now we're going to do the right side. Again, try not to lean back or forward. Keep the legs parallel. It's a little hard to see. But that's the quad stretch. All right, the next one is the air bench. And the order of these is kind of specific because we've lengthened those quad muscles that have been shortened. Now, they're going to need to be strengthened. So this is the quickest, most effective way to do that. It's going to be less stress on your knees than some of the gym machines that you see with those leg lifts, the quad lifts. That's why I selected these. But you're going to stand up against the wall and do this with shoes so you get traction. I don't want anybody slipping. That's the recommended method. Get those knees parallel to the ground and your shoulders and head up against the wall. Now, you might want to do this for 30 seconds at first, but eventually You can probably work your way up to 2 minutes at a time. Great length of the quad stretch exercise. And you'll notice that you're still in alignment in the upper back. All right, we're down to the last two. So we're getting near the end here. But step number 20 is the calf smash. I have rather large calves, probably from trying to get all the muscle in my short legs, but a lot of tension. Also, it's good for tight Achilles tendon area. Get in a position where our hands behind our shoulders, support the weight, and find that area where you find the most tension, and you can lift up. If you want even more intense, little trigger point therapy, put your other leg on top and lift up. Man, I can really feel that. There's really a knot in the back of that leg. So hold it for 20, 30 seconds and release. And again, whatever you do to one side, make sure you do to the other. Again, I promised you the light at the end of the tunnel, and this is foot circles. This is going to mobilize the joints in the ankle. The joints in the ankle are more free-floating, and gravity is what keeps the collection of bones in the ankle together. And this is going to strengthen the connection and improve any mobility. So you're going to lay flat. You're going to bring that leg up. You can grab behind the knee, and you're going to rotate that ankle 20 times in circles to the left, and then 20 times in circles to the right. We're going to come back down, and we're going to do the other side. To the right, and circles to the left. So to sum it all up, those are the things that I did to help my posture and alignment. Selected exercises from head all the way down to the ankles, and a little bit reasons why I did those and why I think it can help other musicians, people. If you're working out, if you're still have a curved back and you're working, that back still stretched, it could cause further injury. Please don't want to do that. Also seek physical trainers, physical therapy, yoga classes, Egoscue locations. There's just a number of resources and people that have been certified in each area. And I really encourage you to try those out, check it out, and see what works for you. And these are the things that worked for me. And I was not only avoided further injury, but really avoided pain and pressure in my neck, upper back, and my shoulders. And what does it mean for us right now as musicians? It's efficiency, it's breathing. It means that I don't have to muscle for the upper register. I'm also going to talk about the Bobby Shew yoga breath later on that I use for higher compression breathing in the upper register. And that'll be in my lead trumpet presentation. And, so please check that out. But, that's it in a nutshell, and hope to see you at the next presentation and hopefully in person next year.